Good afternoon. Welcome to the final presentation of day one of the AI Festival. Hope you've had a wonderful day so far. I'm sure there's been some excellent insight gleaned from the presenters. I'm going to talk to you about how businesses can build their AI capability without investing millions. If you have any questions along the way, please use the chat channel, and we'll be having a Q&A for 10 minutes at the end of this presentation. Firstly, a quick introduction on myself. I've been commercializing technology for 2 decades now. The last 10 have been in this burgeoning industry of applied artificial intelligence. As an entrepreneur in residence at Nottingham Business School, I deal with entrepreneurs each and every week with new exciting ideas to apply AI to some of business and indeed society's biggest challenges. As CEO of Filament, I have been overseeing over 150 AI projects over the last 4 or 5 years in varying organizations in different industries, large and small. And I hope to give some ideas and some case studies from that experience during this talk. I'm going to talk about 5 key themes for what I've seen organizations need in order to successfully build and deploy an AI capability. I'm going to talk about clients and the approaches they've taken in building that capability and how they've established a competitive advantage. These are organizations I've worked with directly and can bring some insight. As you can see, it's from a vast variety of industries and indeed sizes of organizations. But what they all have in common is they've taken a strategic long-term view on how AI can drive business impact in the short term and give them a competitive advantage in the long term. These key themes are around these 5 ideas of setting strategy, building assets and capability, establishing process agility, building up the people and skills to enable that capability, and the shrewd use of partnering. So let's start with setting strategy. Every business leader must consider these 2 questions when considering where they should focus the make elements of their make or buy strategy with AI. What is the strategic edge of your expertise? What do your people and team have that is differentiated from the competition? And equally, what is your edge in terms of data? What proprietary data sources do you own as an organization that no other organization has access to? At the intersection of these 2 points, you have your core choice for your make a capability in AI. What are you going to build? What are you going to train? What are you going to own? Now, obviously, outside of that sweet spot, you've got lots of opportunities for tactical AI implementations that deliver an ROI and start building momentum. But they should all come back ultimately to your strategic goal of bottling your expertise and your data into a long-term strategic asset. So let's look at how that works in practicality. You're effectively taking your domain expertise, your business analyst type capability, and you're overlapping that on your unique data set, powered by your data science capability. At that intersection, you've got the sweet spot. That's where you'll be literally creating intellectual property in the form of machine learning models. And it's the IT and software engineering wrapper around that that allows you to deploy that into operation. You therefore need the people and process that collate those 3 skill sets and give you this combination which ultimately derives your competitive advantage. Now let's look at the process agility. You need to establish a culture of experimentation. Whether you're a large multinational or a startup, you need to work with agility and engage all relevant stakeholders and indeed your client base in order to hone the key points on which you want to invest in your AI assets. The first phase is around the invention and the hypothesis building. That is where you take a combination of the business insight and the data assets to decide how you prioritize your machine learning journey. Once you have a business hypothesis and a data set, it is then the data study phase, a desk study by your data scientists, your machine learning resources to test that hypothesis, to test that the state of the art in applied AI is able to realize the value that you've assumed in the hypothesis. Once complete, you can then move on to the proof of concept build. Again, this incremental investment, ensuring that you do not spend ahead of the curve. The proof of concept is then tested with stakeholders before you progress to an MVP build and ultimately to operational deployment. Let's look at the people and skills you need in each of these stages, in each function. In strategy, planning, and operations, you need all those skill sets represented, but it's the business analysts coming to the fore who are setting those business hypotheses and setting the priority and the roadmap based on business drivers. But they need to have an appreciation and the voice of both the engineering community and the data science community and any academic point of view to ensure your roadmap is based on the art of the possible. In the delivery phase, you need that business analyst role in a continued play to ensure you're focused on the outcome, on the business impact, and you need really good multi-skilled project managers, delivery managers that pull in the skills from your data science and your engineering team. And finally, a big focus on AI is the continual evolution of those assets. And once in deployment, how you can continuously improve and gain yet more business value. And as you can imagine, not all organizations have all of those skills covered. So another key skill in the organizations that have done this well is the ability to partner well and procure well. So let's look at partnering. Now, luckily, in the field of AI, you have a lot of options to partner. It's quite a complex value chain, and all of these parties can help you to realize the business value. Indeed, they're very much incentivized to help you succeed. So let's start with the big AI platforms, AWS, Microsoft, Google, and IBM Watson, to name a few. Their point of view, they're looking for you to adopt their technology platform, and they can bring you the tools and the skills and the services that can underpin your program. They also are the cloud hosting providers typically, and therefore a good organizations to be partnering with. The tooling can come from a number of different sources. In fact, many tools are open source, and what you need is to navigate those different options for the given challenge. Often academia comes in to help you establish the art of the possible and make sure that you're getting the latest and best approaches and techniques to solve those business challenges. You may need to partner with out-of-the-box AI-powered products to meet those non-strategic areas where you're just literally looking for the ROI and therefore you can buy off the peg. But in your key strategic areas where you want to make your own AI assets and build your capability, that's where you will need the help of consultants typically to bring the benefits of the full ecosystem and bring their experience from other industries and other clients. I've been lucky enough to work with some excellent institutions and academic partners. A few are listed on this slide. Alan Turing is a world-class resource we have on our doorstep here in the UK. Absolute excellence, world-class excellence in the academic rigor of applied AI. The University of Essex is one example of a fantastic organization in the UK, not just from their academic prowess, but in their business liaison, a key skill that is needed by all UK universities in order to translate that academic excellence into business impact, the ability to partner well. And I couldn't advocate for the University of Essex team enough. University of Toronto is another partnership we've established. Indeed, it was the reason my business located our North American HQ in Toronto, because of that local talent pool and expertise and the partnership with academia. I'm now going to walk you through a number of case studies, starting with Deutsche Telekom, or T-Mobile, who saw AI as a strategic lever for their entire group and wanted to establish a hub and spoke model with a central capability in Germany and then pockets of applied AI capability around the business units and around the globe. When they established that central team, there was an education and a culture and process building exercise in those early months, where you established the collaboration between the business analysts, the engineers, and the data scientists, forming small teams, set very specific challenges, and bringing the best of all those skill sets. One such challenge was to extract emotion from the text and voice calls of their customer service teams in every geography and every language in which they worked, allowing them to prioritize customer service agents or other workflows based on the perceived emotion of their customers at any given time. Secondly, they built a time series correlation engine that would enable a bunch of different use cases around the business. Most pertinently in the short term was to help them keep track of cyber attacks across the huge number of networks that T-Mobile manage across the group. Indeed, that cybersecurity team now use their time series correlation engine to track 10,000 different networks for anomalies and ultimately cybercrime. At the other end of the spectrum, here's a startup that took a very similar approach to partnering and agile build and agile testing of their machine learning hypotheses in building out a brand new product in a record amount of time. So the founder, Shai Hill, established Integrum ESG in 2018. And within a year and a half, he was in the market building up a client base of buy-side banking professionals. At each stage of the proof of value, the MVP, and ultimately that first client-ready solution, he shrewdly built up and invested in the machine learning elements, the software engineering, and the business analyst skills to hone a product that is now very fast growing and offering something differentiated on the market. ESG, by the way, is environmental, social, and governance indicators from the market that allow you to establish whether a company is set on strong foundations for future growth. Another example in a different field of banking is HSBC's retail bank has built up a skill set in conversational AI, conversational banking. And it all started really with a product, the first version of a digital assistant they deployed in their US team called IDA, which was trained on high volume customer service inquiries. As you can see, it yielded some excellent results, both operational saving and also freeing up their agents to spend more time with customers on more complex queries. That early success created the momentum to scale it globally and start to bring more and more functionality into what you could serve your customers with via a digital interface. And indeed, it's not just text, it can expand out across multiple conversational interfaces, such as voice, Alexa, and Google Home. McDonald's also got on that journey a few years ago, and one of their early wins was to use machine learning to create a recommendation engine in the kiosks in their restaurants, applying factors such as the time of day and the weather outside to hone the extra items that are recommended to their customers when they're ordering via the kiosks. Another smaller organization that have used machine learning to give a very, very tangible business outcome is this automotive manufacturer whose growth was being restrained by the human inspection of faults on their supply line. By introducing a computer vision automated fault detection process, it actually improved the rate of accuracy and, of course, enabled them to get far greater throughput and ultimately double their revenue within 12 months. Back in a banking use case, here Macquarie were detecting weak signals within market behaviors, and the sentiment around share price changes for publicly listed stock. By being on top of these soft signals, you were effectively empowering and augmenting those human researchers so their advice and their insights could be shared with their clients in far greater speed and efficacy. In another field, here now in SETA's airport operations business, they serve 50% of the world's airports with operational services such as baggage management. It is a 2.3 billion a year problem that luggage gets lost and cannot be reunited with its owner. In this system, they use computer vision to take an image of that baggage on check-in and link it within the database to that passenger. So should the tag be lost on the journey, a baggage handler was able to use their mobile phone to take a photo of the baggage. It was cross-referenced against the images in the database and then reunited with the passenger record, and a new tag could be created. In this global pharmaceutical, they've built up a capability in conversational AI so that they could get a more intimate relationship with their patients, with their customers. In the first case, this was around an asthma product, an inhaler, and providing an assistant app was able to give their patients the ability to ask questions about the condition, about the treatment, and indeed notify them on events like poor air quality, i.e. giving this firm a far more intimate relationship with their customer base and greater insight so that they can improve their products over time. As you can imagine, many shopping malls and bricks and mortar commerce have struggled, not just in this last year with COVID, but over the last few years with the growing threat to their business faced by e-commerce. This particular shopping mall operator is using AI as a way to fight back and to improve the shopping experience and bring shoppers back to bricks and mortar. But they started with a very tactical money-saving project to optimize energy efficiency within both the shopping mall and the buildings in its entirety and the office blocks above it, and share some of that savings with their tenants. And in engaging tenants in a co-creation and co-saving, co-innovation mode, they're now creating other business models, other interesting applications of AI, all partnering with their tenants. And that includes points of sale promotions and other enhanced features to make that in bricks and mortar retail experience enhanced over buying online. So I hope that gives you a nice diverse array of organizations and the approaches they've taken and some of the business value they've seen and the journey that they will continue to go on. In all cases, there were these key themes that we've seen time and time again. The strategy is concise and aligned to the core capabilities and data sets of the organization. They have built those assets and they've wrapped a capability around them to continuously evolve them. They've shown process agility. They've got those quick wins and they haven't overextended their investment before they've proven the value. They've got the people and skills in the right blend, collaborating together, co-located, and pulling in the expertise of outside partners where needed to bring out ideas and expertise from other industries. And on that final point, I want to dwell on what you should look for as a business owner when you're engaging a partner on this journey. They need to share your vision that AI is the single biggest opportunity for value creation for your business. They need to help you accelerate the agility and the time to value that you see so you can build that ROI and reinvest into the innovation program. They need to be about building your machine learning IP, not reselling something from your data to your competitor set, i.e. they need to be focused on your strategic advantage and building your internal capability. They need to plug gaps in your full stack capability, whether it's the software engineering, the data science, or the business analyst piece. And they need to help you tap into a wider ecosystem of tech and academic partners. And crucially, they need to be prudent with your budget. They need to buy into this agile approach, step-by-step approach to proving and building AI assets. And thereby be with you for this journey ahead and give you the tools and support to continuously improve those assets and make them an ongoing strategic advantage for your firm. So thank you very much for your time. I'm looking forward to a lively Q&A session. And thanks for a great day at the AI Festival. And I wish you all, after our Q&A, to have a lovely evening.
Okay, hi there, Phil. Can you hear us okay?
I certainly can.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that session. Loads of brilliant advice for the companies listening to you today. Should we kick off the Q&A with, you've talked a lot about some of the success stories in AI investment. Have you seen it go wrong?
I've seen a lot of overspending and wasted resources, and thus, lack. Sometimes it's thwarted the investment that companies then back up their initial projects. So a couple of the, without naming names, a couple of the mistakes I've seen is to go out and buy a huge fleet of data scientists and park them in a large room and expect that the business outcome will flow magically from those extremely intelligent data analysts, data scientists. So as I kind of talked about earlier, the successful companies have created these more agile cross-functional teams with the engineering skills and the business analysts and co-located those different skills. So that's sort of one cautionary tale. I'd say the other family of wasted money on AI programs has been around going too far on the operational steps before you've proved the hypothesis within the state of the art of applied AI technology. So those are the two real areas where I've seen it go wrong.
Okay, thank you very much, Phil. I think also you spoke about starting your AI strategy with the data that you've got. Could you bring that to life a bit, a bit more color in terms of, what kind of suitable data are you talking about, particularly in terms of training these AI models?
Sure. Well, if you define AI as the broad field of technology that we have at our disposal today, a lot of it is actually concerned with pulling out structure out of unstructured alternative sources. So that might be pixels, computer vision, processing images and videos. It might be alternative data such as sound and frequency and vibration, or it could be unstructured natural language text. And in each of those cases, you are turning those unstructured sources into structured sources, so you can train models and use them as part of your data lake. So when you're talking to any given company, every company is sitting on proprietary data that only they have access to. So it is really a process of identifying where those data assets are differentiating or could be differentiating, coupling them with external assets that you have access to, so the world's information, and then training proprietary models using your expertise.
And do you feel Phil, that you need to have that that really novel data in order to make that work? Could you, because there's a lot of open source data sources these days, is there a possibility of actually combining some of those open source data in order to make something novel? And have you seen that work?
I have, yeah. I mean, it's purely an advantage if you've got a data set that no one else has.
Yeah.
But equally, you can gain that advantage by the way in which you collate different data sources, and indeed the cerebral process of training it with your domain experts. So yeah, you can. I've seen very successful AI offerings trained on public data sets.
And are there any particular sectors that you've seen that have jumped ahead of others? Any vertical markets that have jumped ahead of others in terms of their use of AI? Is anybody really leading the field, in your opinion, or anybody just about to burst through?
I think a wider trend since the pandemic this time last year has been a real boost of innovation around pharma, for obvious reasons, and healthcare services.
Yeah.
The adoption of AI has been prompted by necessity. We've seen a lot of digital assistance for healthcare and charities and the NHS, indeed, because under constrained resources, putting the intelligence and the knowledge of your organization available to many via digital assistance is one area of boom I've seen in the last 12 months. Equally, again, driven by necessity, a lot of problem solving around things like track and trace has driven some really interesting applications and amalgamation of different data sets. And on that point of amalgamation, it requires certain collaboration frameworks in order for it to be successful. And there's as much innovation as the way in which different bodies pool their data as it's been in the innovation around the actual technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's a definite hypothesis that we're debating at the moment in terms of how you bring that data and that ecosystem together. So that's very interesting, Phil. Question from myself. We have 150 plus companies here at Innovation Martlesham, many of which are embarking on growing their business in the area of AI. We have other great companies like Orbital Media in the East region. If you were to advise them in any way in terms of how to build a successful business, what advice would you give that you would be happy to share with us?
Yeah, well, I'd go back to the fundamentals of each of those 150 businesses will have both a competitive advantage in their expertise or indeed their one of the functions within their business, one or more. And it might be customer service, it might be research, it might be HR or recruiting. Mm-hmm. These are the core areas, the strategic areas where a business should be focusing their AI program. Because if they've already got a differentiated human capability there, they have an opportunity to turn that into a differentiating AI capability by effectively bottling that expertise into machine learning models that can be scaled and can further augment that human capability. So that's that's a generic statement across all industries, and all different companies will have very different strengths and focuses.
Absolutely. And Phil, I guess probably the last question, unfortunately, with the time, unfortunately. But in terms of, we've got a session tomorrow on investment into AI companies. So I guess the question, turning it slightly, when VCs are looking at investing in companies, AI-related companies, do they use AI themselves in order to derive which companies they're going to invest in? Or is it more about, like we talked about, the specific data sources, the specific algorithms, or something novel to that company?
I would say it's an area in the last 12 months that is really taking flight, is the use in VCs and private equity as well in using AI technologies to get an edge. And following my generic hypothesis earlier, they see the origination, the finding of the hot new firms, or the fastest growing or the most differentiating firms to invest in, finding them before their competition is one of the key KPIs of that whole industry.
Yeah.
Now, using particularly NLP and machine learning techniques, aggregating data from a number of paid subscriptions they pay for, the pitch books, the crunch bases, the capital IQs, the Factiva News type financial sources, amalgamating that with news and other alternative sources, they're getting signals that a company is ripe for investment. And not only that, they can bottle their investment thesis into machine learning models and turn that into the way in which they purview the world's data to get very tailored, recommended companies for them to contact before their competition. And it's something I've personally done a lot of work with the private equity industry in the last 12 months on exactly that use case.
Fascinating.
Perfect, thank you. It's really interesting, isn't it? So companies almost need to know exactly how those models are working in order to make sure they are interesting to those VCs. Phil, thank you ever so much for your time. Appreciate it. We've run out of time right now, but thank you for joining us and closing our day one of the AI Festival.
Yeah, thank you very much, Phil.
My pleasure. Well hosted. Thank you very much.
Perfect.